Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, where we explore the unexplained and mysterious phenomena that have occurred throughout the state of Michigan and beyond.
From UFO sightings to ghostly encounters, we delve deep into the stories, the evidence, and the theories behind these strange events.
We are your hosts. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Wayne.
We are an educator duo that after an encounter with a triangular UFO in 2018 in Michigan, we decided to investigate UFOs and the paranormal. In this podcast, we will be speaking with eyewitnesses, experts, and researchers to uncover the truth about some of the most intriguing cases of paranormal activity in and around Michigan.
Our goal is not to convince anyone of the existence of these phenomena, but rather to provide a platform for discussion and exploration. So, buckle up and join us on this journey down the paranormal rabbit hole.
On an escalator.
All right. What is going on, everybody out there in YouTube land and everywhere else? Good evening or good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. I'm going to bring in my lovely co-host at this moment, Michelle. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy Saturday.
What is going on, man? What a crazy, crazy week.
5 more days of school.
Yep. I got 8 more, and 3 of those 8 are half days for final exams for the high schoolers.
Half days too. I couldn't be more excited.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another live edition of the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast. It is June 3rd, 2023 at the time of this recording, and we are live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. As always, we'll be releasing this on all the major podcasting platforms shortly after, and you'll be able to hear the show on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many others. And don't forget, you are now listening to, according to the people over at FeedSpot, one of the top 100 podcasts in Michigan. I guess people's standards are really low, Michelle.
I didn't even know that we had 100 podcasts in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, we do. We got a lot of political podcasts and sports podcasts and things like that, so, but thanks to everyone for getting the show out there and really making it happen. And, just to make sure that you guys know, make sure you like, share, and subscribe when you get a second. So
I had to smirk really quick when I saw Dorothy's message. Hey there, kids. Well, it's Mama Dorothy. Yeah, we're gonna give some of the quick hellos to chat before we hopefully have Dolly Safran join us. She is not joined as of yet, so we're crossing fingers. But we want to say hey to Barry and Hellfire Studios. We've got Tabin Rice here with us. We've got Rick Davis, Mama Dorothy, and Guy Merritt. So hey everyone.
All right. Hey, Guy, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Rick Davis, hey, good seeing you guys. So welcome. Guy says, you paid him off. You know what's funny about that guy, though? So I was researching the list and everything in FeedSpot. Down at the bottom of their information, it says you can buy a subscription or something like this to be on their list more or whatever, and they'll move you up off of the rank number.
So that's funny that you say that.
Yeah.
Because if we did give them money, then they would bump us up.
Right. So wait a minute. Guy, are you running FeedSpot? You're running FeedSpot, aren't you? Yeah.
He's secretly giving out cups of coffee to everyone.
All right. So let's see. What else do we got going on? So when Dolly does join us, hopefully she's not running into weather or, problems like that. But I did try to contact her about 5:30 this afternoon and send her the link to join us. And I haven't heard back. I also did text her and still haven't heard anything back. So
crossing fingers, everyone.
Well, we got some stuff we can talk about, and maybe it'll just be a short episode, but For those of you in chat, when Dolly gets here and we start interviewing her, if you would like to ask her a question, put it all in caps. It draws our attention to it, and we will do our best to ask the question.
Hey, Smoochie.
So, Smoochie's
joined.
Yes. How is it?
She may be piloting a spaceship. That is awesome. Or remember, if you have any questions for us, you can throw them in all caps too.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. So, as always, just wanted to say that this live show and the podcast happens because of all of you guys, the viewers, the listeners of the show, and your amazing support. So if you want to continue to help support or start, helping, the links are below in the show description. Links to PayPal, Patreon, Linktree. Will take you to other ways to support the podcast. But one of the best ways you can support our show is to like, share, and subscribe. So, Absolutely. Hey, Marty James.
Yeah, so Marty James 81 has joined us tonight. So thanks for joining in. So good seeing you guys here tonight, and everybody else that's watching that's not participating in chat or might be on Facebook or Twitter. So welcome. So let's see.
We've got to give shout outs tonight. We've got Hava H.
Oh, yeah.
For her continued support.
Our Patreon
members. We've got Taban R, Cheryl G. So I have to thank you guys for continuing to support.
All right.
Oh, okay. So you know what, Dorothy? Just for you, I'm going to read this bio, whether she joins us or not.
Yeah.
So this is Dolly's bio in January of.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, okay.
One of the reasons why Dolly was brought to our attention was because the book that was written about her, called Symmetry, was written by Preston Dennett, which is really, really cool. So I just wanted to put that out there, and we had reached out to her to, have her come on, and there was a date that she was going to join us and never responded back. And I had already booked somebody for that date. So just real quick how this worked. I emailed her. This was a while ago. She said she would come on. I said, well, how does X date look? She didn't respond. I'm like, well, okay. So since I didn't hear, I got somebody else to come on. And then she emailed me or messaged me about 20 minutes before that show and said, is there a link to the show? Are we going on tonight? I never heard back from you to confirm. So we did confirm tonight with her, and she's not here yet. So
hey, Janine, West Side.
What's going on, Detroit West Side? Checking in. All right. Hey, Janine, good seeing you. All right, Michelle, why don't you give us Dolly's bio?
Okay. So, whether she's able to show up or not, Dorothy, this is for you. This is Dolly's bio. So in January of 1973, 14-year-old Dolly Safran gazed out the window of her home near the Florida Everglades. Without warning, a UFO dropped from the sky and hovered in her backyard. To her shock, Dolly could see thin, gray-skinned figures with large, dark eyes staring back at her. Frightened, she dove under her bed to hide. At that moment, her bedroom filled with a blazing blue light. The next thing she knew, morning had arrived. She was lying on the floor wearing somebody else's pajamas. She had been taken again. This was not her first episode of missing time. It had happened many times before. Only this time, something different happened. Dolly remembered. In fact, she remembered everything. Over the next few days, Dolly recalled being taken aboard the craft where she was examined by gray ETs. She then had a long conversation with them, was given a tour of the craft, and was told she would soon be contacted again. Only a few days later, the ETs returned and took her on board again. Dolly had no fear as she spoke with the Greys, who reminded her that she had been contacted many times before. She was asked if she would like to work with them and learn from them and what she would like to learn. Amazed by the opportunity, Dolly chose to learn how to pilot the craft. The ETs agreed. So began Dolly's lifelong experiences with extraterrestrials.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. Guys, like, oh, hell, blue light. Sweeping the room.
Yeah, and speaking of blue light, Guy, have you ever looked into that Project Blue Beam? Considering that that's what it was called. Ah, okay. So Guy says my blue light just switched me off, according to my ex. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Metalhead. Welcome, my man. Good
Hey,
seeing
Metalhead.
you.
So it is a quiet night here in Michigan.
It is, but we do have some kind of news that we can talk about.
Well, first, let's show everybody what finally came in the mail.
Oh yeah. All right, everybody will like this.
Along with Abby's artwork, I designed something for us so that Wayne could take it with him to the Cosmic Summit.
Yes. So let me find the. Here we go. Check this out, everybody. Yes, that's right.
We got business cards.
We finally got business cards.
Wayne had been giving me a hard time because he's like, I'm going to the Cosmic Summit soon with Randall Carlson, and it's like, yeah, I'll get these designed and made. The backside's got the QR code. It's really cool. It goes like right to.
Yeah, so the backside has our QR code, and it's really cool. All you gotta do is scan it with your phone, and it takes you right to the YouTube page.
Taven said finally official. It's like Facebook official. It's like people with relationships. It's not official until it's Facebook official.
Very, very true. All right. So let's go through some of these comments here real quick. Okay, Dorothy. Dorothy says, wow, interesting story. Parallels a dream, in quotes, I had when very young. I flew the ship by thinking about where I wanted to go. Okay. That is very, very cool. Now, was there a blue light involved? Because if this is some type of synchronistic thing, this is very, very interesting.
It's like that crazy mind control. It's like if I was in a ship, where would I go?
Well, or did Dorothy really have a dream? You know what I'm saying? Like, was she participating in something and she didn't really realize it? It's very, very interesting. So,
yeah, even Guy said, dreams strangely play an important part in contact from what I've seen and heard. Who knows?
Yeah. Now, what's really interesting, everybody knows Guy Merritt's story with our podcast and about the triangles here in Michigan in 1994 on the east side. That's where Guy and Ed had seen their triangle. Michelle and I saw it over here in the southeastern part of Michigan in 2018. Pretty convinced it was probably the same craft or type of craft that we had seen. But Guy also had a recent strange encounter, just trying to sell was it a riding lawnmower, Guy? And come to find out, the person who bought the riding lawnmower, he really connected with this young lady, and she bought the riding lawnmower, and she was talking about how she was abducted. Didn't know Guy from anybody. A garden tractor, okay. Yeah. Metalhead says, I was abducted in California by a triangle in the 70s. You know who else was abducted by a triangle in the 70s? Terry Lovelace. Yep.
Devil's Den.
Devil's Den. Was that Devil's Den, Arkansas?
I believe so. That's where they were. He and his buddy were camping.
Yep. Oh, Dorothy says, your dream was told on Strange Recon, October 17th, 2022. She'll find the timestamp. Okay, cool. Yeah, Metalhead, absolutely. You got to read the book, Incident at Devil's Den by Terry Lovelace.
One of our earlier episodes. With Terry too.
As a matter of fact, let me get you the number of that episode with him, because you'll want to listen to it.
It goes into a lot of detail.
And the stuff that happened with him and the OSI, the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations, I believe it's called. So hold on, I'm trying to find that episode number for you.
Dorothy, My Coincidental Life. That's going to be a good title. She said that she experiences through childhood into adulthood 2 discrete sightings. One was a mass sighting in 67 to 68. Another was 1997, up close and personal.
Okay, so here you go. It's our episode 6. It was our 6th episode that we did, and it was When Night Falls at Devil's Den with special guest Mr. Terry Lovelace, Esquire, because he is a lawyer. So, and his story and what happened with him and his friend is absolutely incredible. And we released that on May 29th, 2021.
Yeah, definitely go back and listen to it, because he talks about what was the surgery that they did on him, the markings on his leg.
Yes, and he's got implants that they won't remove because of the weird, what almost looks like wiring in his leg, and they don't know what it would be attached to or the dangers and stuff.
Nordland, I don't know how comments are turned off.
What's
said
up?
I was going to post my Nordland 2. I was going to post my UFO encounter, but comments are turned off.
Comments are turned
cute
off.
Cute puppy in the photo.
Yeah, that is a cute dog. Is that a German Shepherd? Looks cute.
It looks like a German Shepherd.
Yep. And then Guy says, Terry Lovelace, he was the assistant attorney general of American Samoa and the state of Vermont. Yeah, the guy's credible. He didn't need to make up any kind of a story or anything, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So episode 6.
Oh, Dorothy, absolutely. I can't even imagine anyone having those kind of occurrences and sightings and not having PTSD.
I'm still trying to reconstruct my own history. Got a mild case of complex PTSD. Reconstruction of years in my childhood have been ongoing since age 17. Yep, I mean, you're checking off all the boxes. And I personally think too that Guy Merritt, he was probably abducted as well. Just doesn't realize it or know. Guy's been bothered and rattled and constantly has contacts and stuff with things that just seem too bizarre to chalk up the consequence.
I know.
Sorry, Guy, but
it's either 2000. It's at some point in Michigan. I've got that friend of mine that's supposed to type up her story. So I don't know if it's Guy's triangle that she witnessed or the one that we did.
Yeah. So we don't know what the year was, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's like a little trailer teaser right there, guys. I've got a really good and detailed story coming from a science teacher. So another teacher with a sighting.
Yep. All right. So let me do this. Since Dolly hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah. Guy said, call me in.
All right. Hold on, Guy. We're going to bring on
we're bringing in Get Off My Lawn.
Let's see here. Where are you in my chat? There you are. Guy's always great to talk to. It's never a dull moment. All right, Dorothy, we see you. What are you saying here? The complex PTSD came from my family, of course. The aliens took me on a ride to give me hope and reassure me they were watching over me and would protect me all my life. Kid's dream or question mark?
Ooh.
Oof. Have you ever done hypnotic regression? Like, have you tried to do any
No, but like she said, psychologically speaking, you could say her brain was trying to soothe and regulate herself.
Yeah.
It's that healing process that the brain does on the body. Like if you're in an extreme amount of pain, what does it try to do? It tries to target whatever is hurting to ease the pain.
Yeah. All right. Hey, check this out. Look at who. Wait a minute. Who's this guy? Who's this guy?
I've been doing drywall and painting all day. Seriously, I got drywall on my arms and.
Yeah. Well, now you're doing a live show right now. So welcome back, Guy. How's it going, man?
Good to see you guys. No, you mentioned that tractor thing, and I thought it was real strange, and I've had so many of these, in my case, weird synchronicities, and I really wanted to run it by the gang here because I'm like, is this strange or is it me? You know what I'm saying?
All right. So you want help from the chat room?
Yeah,
Yes?
I want him to take a vote and tell me if this is just chance or I've had so many weird things like this. I look crazy. Seriously, I was doing drywall. I've been doing drywall and painting all day, man. Let me do my hair. I've got my public. I don't want to. So many people confuse me with Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
Charlie's going crazy. The Chihuahua, he's going nuts. So anyway, most people on here, he's fighting with the cat. When you get down, he's not even a freak.
You can see him in the background. He's looking at you like, not again, man.
He's like, Dad, get up. See him? He's looking at me. He's like, get off the damn internet, man.
You got drywall to do.
Yeah, no shit. I've had a long couple of weeks. I had to replace a water heater, and the floor in that little mechanical room was shot. I had to rip that out, put a floor in, vinyl, drywall was bad. I had a leak in my copper plumbing. It's been a long 2 weeks. But anyway, so in 94, for anybody that knows my story, I drove under a triangle on US 23 near Flint. And my coworkers, two ladies carpooling to where I worked, got to work an hour late. They were driving south on US 23 near an exit called Thompson Road, south of Flint. And they ended up driving north. They did have vague memories of their van spinning around. I made a report to MUFON, and the lady at MUFON, this is before I heard my coworker's story, because it happened on a Friday, and I called MUFON on Saturday, and on Sunday, the gal told me, on Saturday, she told me about these two other ladies carpooling to a different factory about 7 hours before at the same spot. They were driving south to go to a different factory. These are not my coworkers. Again, two ladies carpooling. They're driving south, and all of a sudden they kind of come to consciousness going north, right? And they're going, one of them starts chuckling and says, hey, we're going north. And the other was like, what? And they're like, we got to turn around. What happened? How did this happen? In their case, they don't remember spinning around, but as they got up to the Thompson Road exit, they saw this massive, huge triangle right above the freeway, straddling both lanes of the freeway, right? Right at the Thompson Road exit on US 23. This is 29 years ago, right? So 2 weeks ago, Saturday, I'm selling a garden tractor on Craigslist, right? This gal comes out to buy a little, about 4'11", little Sicilian gal, man. She's a little dynamo, works in a factory. She helped me push this tractor up into a truck. But we were talking, we just immediately just kind of hit it off. She's real gregarious and talkative, and showed me pictures of her kids on her phone, and showed me a picture of a pet turkey and a pet chicken, right? Really loves animals. And I said to her, yeah, I love animals. Crazy. I don't even like to see roadkill. I said, I love guns, but I never shot an animal because I couldn't, even as a kid, I couldn't do it. And I just made this offhand comment. I said, I saw a UFO too, and I kind of confirmed to me we're not the top of the food chain. I said, maybe that's why I can't shoot animals, And she said, oh, UFOs, I'm really into UFOs. She said, my dad lives in Holly, and there's a church across the street, and he saw an orb above the church 3 times, and even the neighbor saw it, and he called the cops, and they thought he was crazy, and blah, blah, blah. And she said, but I'm really into it. I watch all the documentaries, and I said, wow, you're that into it. I said, have you ever seen a UFO? And this is when this blew my mind, man. I was like, what are the chances of this, right? She says I said, have you ever seen a UFO? And she said, no, I've never seen a UFO. And she looked kind of like down at the ground with this quizzical look on her face. And she said, but I had this weird thing happen. And I'm like, yeah, like what? And she says, well, I was coming home from work. Apparently, she lives out near Fenton, and she lives in Flint. And she said, I was getting on US 20, and I didn't tell her any of these details, none of them. I didn't even tell her where I saw it, I don't believe. And she said, I was getting on US 23 at Thompson Road, right? This is like 2,000 yards south of where I saw this thing in 94. And she says, yeah, she says, I was getting on, I called my mom. I wasn't going to go straight home. I called my mom, told her I was going to stop by. She said, I was driving along. She said, all of a sudden I realized I'm coming into Fenton. And she said, you know, I drive home the same way every night. I remember getting on the freeway. And she said, I was going north. And she said, you know, I looked down and, you know, I was real late and going, I don't know why. And I was going south. And I don't know why I was going south. And I had to call my mom and say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late, but I got on the freeway going north and now I'm going south, you know. And I'm listening to this and going, I can't believe I'm hearing this, right? I'm like, it just was so bizarre to me that she's telling me the same story. And she said another time she got on US 23 at White Lake Road, which I think is about 6 miles south of Fenton. And she said in that instance, again, she's driving back to Flint. And she said, it was so weird. She said, I got on at White Lake Road and just suddenly I was in Flint, which is like 15 miles. She said, I have no memory of the drive at all. And I just couldn't. And it's funny. I sent her a text about a week ago and said, how's the tractor doing? Because I'd had one little issue with it. And I said, by the way, you might want to watch this video I posted on YouTube a couple of years ago. I know some ladies that had the same deal where they were going one direction and she said, wow, exclamation point. She said, it really scared the shit out of me. So I think at some level, I mean, frankly, she never said I got abducted. She never even saw a UFO, right? But when she told me she had this identical experience, I'm thinking, what are the chances? Of course, I've had a lot of this crap happen where I have these oddball things. But I'm thinking, what are the chances the lady that comes to buy my tractor 30 years later almost is going to tell me this crazy story, basically of missing time, going the wrong direction, and it all happened at the Thompson Road exit of US 23. I'm like, who's even going to believe this? I wouldn't believe it if I heard it. If I heard it from somebody, I'd be like, is this dude making this up? Is he exaggerating? I mean, I'm going to take a half of Xanax, man. I can't even talk about this shit without getting scared. So let's talk about PTSD. I mean, I was diagnosed with it. I'm not kidding. I think that's my diagnosis. I made some comment on YouTube the other day. I said about UFOs. I said, and I'm not schizophrenic. And some guy said, well, you don't know if you're schizophrenic or not. That's like a broken piece of equipment saying I'm not broken. Or I said, dude, I spent 4 years talking to a social worker, and the only diagnosis I got was PTSD. But like they would know. But yeah, I thought that was just an amazing thing. And when she said that, I was like, I walked in and said to Linda, I said, you are not going to believe what this woman just said to me. I was like, this is not even real. Either hundreds or thousands of people. I sent a thing to, remember Alex?
Yeah.
I sent him, I had not heard from him in about a year. And I sent him a text and he was like, holy moly. He said either he said, are hundreds or thousands of people getting abducted at the same spot? And I'm like thinking, I don't know. Or am I just finding them? I mean,
or are they sent to you? I mean, this woman that was buying your tractor.
Yeah, it sounds way out, but I've had, in my case, my exposure mostly to this blue light thing, it did affect my consciousness, because you know about that incident and everybody's heard it, where I was at a wedding reception, introduced to a guy.
Oh, yeah.
Minutes, sat down, drank a glass of wine. I never drank, but I was having anxiety real bad. and jumped out of my chair and ran over to the guy and said, "You've had a really weird close-up UFO experience, haven't you?" Anyone? As a matter of fact, yes, I have. It tells me this crazy ass story, just kind of like mine. And I have no idea. I'd never even believed in psychic stuff, but I saw this like story in my head, like an electrical shock. I mean, and the messed up part about all this stuff is that I remember I really liked, was it John Yost, the guy that you had?
Yes.
He said you have this gigantic piece of knowledge. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I know that there's this other thing that we don't understand. There's these beings, apparently, flying around. I don't know what they are, who they are, but something affected my consciousness. And it seems like these odd things keep happening. When she said this to me, I just was absolutely stunned. I didn't even tell her. She said it, and I didn't even tell her at that point anything. I didn't go, I know some lays. I just went, what the hell is, there's my wife. She's a star in the house anyway, like me. I don't know. I just thought that tractor story was nuts. And then, like you said, I'm like, is there some cosmic thing that's happening that that brought her here? Or are thousands and thousands of people being abducted? And
it's like one of two things, right? It's either somehow they are finding you finding them, or so many people are being abducted in that area they just don't even know it.
Well, she has no what I found fascinating, and I made a little video and stuck it on the Facebook group thing there. I actually made one for YouTube. It blew me away. It kind of, those things are interesting, but it also kind of gets me kind of stirred up, and it kind of, there's a stress thing involved with it for me too. I'm like, God dog, are these guys manipulating me or this thing? Or I'm like, what is this? And what got me was she told me this story in response to the question, have you ever seen a UFO? And her answer was no, but this, and I'm like, yeah.
And it was the same kind of thing that happened to those ladies and your coworkers.
The same spot, man.
The same spot. Going the wrong way.
Yeah. I mean,
come on.
I was like, I really don't know of other people who have seen UFO. One of the things sucks being me, and I'm a regular guy. I was a musician. Really, I worked in sales a little bit, but the last 30 years, mostly I've remodeled houses. I do plumbing, drywall, electrical.
Right.
I mean, I gutted this place. Everything you see here, I built myself. I mean, I'm an ordinary guy. I mean, I'm not some dude with a crazy ass podcast, making jokes and, trying to get money. And, this stuff, this shit got dumped in my lap. I mean,
well, here's something. Dorothy's been listening and she says, I wonder if it isn't already more like the X-Files episode where Mulder and Scully discover the files with their names and blood samples or genetic codes or something. Like everyone's chipped.
It could be.
And then she says, tagged as in an experimental lab animal.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, that's a good point, Dorothy. By the way, Dorothy, I'd love to hear, you had written in the chat that you had complex PTSD and you've had experiences. Love to hear them sometime.
Yes. Dorothy, you're going to have to come on the show and talk to us, or send us a detailed email and we'll read it out. But I think Dorothy, you need to come on here and tell your story.
Yep.
For sure.
It's kind of a family member, you need to.
Yeah. Well, the reason I call her mom is because she looks an awful lot like my mom, who passed away a long time ago, and first name is exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah. And here we are talking about, the same stuff, and we've been brought together in this way through Goofon, through Richie. So dude, this stuff is so weird, man. And Metalhead too.
Really weird, man. Mine's been
Metalhead in chat, right? He said he's gonna send us his story.
Yeah,
but he was abducted by a triangular craft in the 70s. He had said in chat.
Yeah, I believe it. You don't have to convince me. I'd love to hear his. There's a couple of Metalhead. There's another fellow, and I can't think of his name. And Rick's has seen odd stuff. It would be fun one night to just have there. And those folks always show up for your videos. You have to invite them in instead of me. And I just wanted to share that tractor thing because I wanted to see I just can't figure. It's driving me nuts. I'm like, is there some crazy ass thing afoot? Well, it's happened a couple of times. I was getting my blood drawn, and like in 2009, and a guy had just paid me $10 to write about seeing the UFO, the original thing. I hadn't even had that blue light thing yet. And he had a website, and he had a bunch of websites. He had one about UFO, he had banking websites, and he'd give me like $10 to write an article. And I'd just written an article about that, and I was getting my yearly physical, and they sent me down to the phlebotomy lab to have my blood drawn. And it's a little tiny room. There's a nurse, and there's a matronly gal that sat at a desk in this tiny room, and she's sitting there. She ran the phlebotomy thing, and she had a kind of a spacey wallpaper on her computer. And I just put that on. And I used to be freaky about blood tests, and I'd have to think about anything else. And I says to her, I says, hey, you should go on the internet, go to this website and read this article I wrote about seeing a big triangle UFO between Baldwin and Thompson Roads, because I'm trying to not think about getting blood drawn back then, right? And she turns to me kind of weird. She says, my neighbors saw that. He's an attorney and she's a teacher at Mott. And I said, they saw, yeah, she said they saw a huge triangle, the same spot, And I said, what'd they think? And she said, they thought it was the end of the world. She said they drove home as fast as they could, just in a horrible panic, thinking that it was like this apocalyptic thing. That's kind of how it scared the hell out of me. I mean,
dude, that's how I felt when I heard that voice in my head that said, you guys don't belong here. You don't belong here. Get away. You don't belong here. But Janine in chat, she says, you guys read my story I sent to you on October 23rd, 2022, where I said the craft was so low and loud that I thought it was a plane crashing. Then it made a loud boom, sky cracked open. I think I have PTSD.
Probably do.
Probably.
So, well, and as like close with buildings and how populated Detroit is, and with us that close to the airport, it easily could have been that. That was crazy.
And you know what? I think that's part of what was so scary for you guys. And for me is that in both of those situations, it was so abnormal. Like I was on a freeway, and in my case, there were cars, and it was like really, really low, like right there with these brilliant lights. Nobody's even slowing down. Nobody's hitting their brakes. Nobody's pulling over. I think in retrospect, they couldn't see it. And I think in your case, probably you and maybe some other people could see it, but most people couldn't see it.
The people that we heard from that said that they saw the triangle that same night were from different areas around here, like Willow Run, on the west side of the state. But we haven't heard from anybody on that same night that saw it the same time we did. And there were cars around. It was 2:30 in the morning approximately.
But there were still cars.
Cars. I mean, you're talking Ford Road in 275.
Oh, yeah.
And these things like showing, these things seem to like showing up in, I don't know what it is, but it's like major intersections of highways, expressways, interstates, and other roads. It's almost like, here, take a quick look at us. We're going to freak you out. Right. And then we're going to disappear.
Well, you kind of know, you look at given their technology, whoever they are, us from the future, interdimensional, interplay, I don't know what they are. But here's whatever they are, if they didn't want you to see them, based on the technology I've seen, you wouldn't have seen them.
They would cloak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted you to see it. Period. The end. They absolutely knew you could see it, and they probably wanted you to for whatever their purposes might be. So
Yeah.
Well, because of that, here we are.
Yeah. It's the only reason why we're here, honestly. So Hellfire says, what's the otomy called when they rip your frontal lobe out through your nose? That's a lobotomy. Or they'll go in through the eye socket, right? They can go in through the eye socket to get to that frontal lobe. They don't do that much anymore.
Somebody bought me a bottle of, I don't drink, which stinks because I don't, but everything I get gift-wise, somebody bought me a bottle of booze for my birthday.
Oh my God, that is awesome.
Who wants it? It's like vodka or something. I can't drink it.
An alien head full of alcohol.
Seriously, I don't drink at all.
Is it bad that the teacher here is saying me?
You can have it. I'll trade you this for one of them cool coffee cups.
There you go, Wayne.
All right.
No, I'm kidding you. Everybody should check out their merch shop and get a coffee cup. I got a t-shirt. I might get a coffee cup. I'm feeling kind of fiscally irresponsible.
That is cute. I wonder where they found an alien head with alcohol.
I have an alien ashtray. I do. It's really cool.
We've got some other alien coffee cups and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, salt and pepper shakers. I found salt and pepper shakers at Cracker Barrel.
At Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, and they were flying saucers.
It was a flying saucer.
Cracker Barrel has had their consciousness raised.
Well, and it was like drawing up like this little cow into the beam.
Yep. Where did it go?
We put it away so it wouldn't get broken.
Yeah, the cat's like finding it.
So take a vote. I want to know in the chat. I can't see it.
All right, so people that are in chat right now, if you heard Guy's story and you think that these are more than just coincidences and just there's some type of synchronicities, go ahead and put one in the chat right now. Let's see what we get.
Because that's, Wayne, you can imagine that's what I wonder is like, am I just fine? Is it so many? Is it thousands of people, or am I just finding them? And why are they showing up? Why am I finding them at the doctor's office, coming to buy my tractor? I'm like, what the hell?
So far we got 3 ones, man.
3 ones. Either that or there's like a cosmic opening to another dimension right there in your area.
I know this, as long as this stuff keeps happening, I'm not going to quit smoking. It's not, or taking Xanax, because I can't drink. So I don't do any drugs. Well, Xanax and blood pressure medicine. But anyway, peace. I love you guys.
All right.
Good to see
you. Guy. Have a good night.
Hopefully Dolly shows up. And you should get some of these folks like Dorothy and everybody, Rick, and get on and just grab a webcam and tell us your story. That's would be interesting.
Come on,
I was going to say we've got plenty of time this summer. We might have to do another round table.
Yeah, do a live round table.
Yeah, do a round table with everyone.
It would be interesting. I think it's fun. All right, I'm going to get out so in case maybe Dolly will show up.
All right, man. Sounds good. Thanks for jumping in.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. All right. So Metalhead says there's no such thing as coincidence.
Hey, Metalhead said, give me a link. I'll talk.
All right. Metalhead, just email us real quick. Here, I'll put the email in. Go ahead and shoot us an email and I will cut and paste the link in for you and have you jump on. Very interested in hearing this story because it sounds, if you don't know who Terry Lovelace is in his book about the incident at Devil's Den, I'm going to be very, very surprised on what you tell us and how much it will relate to that same. We'll see. We'll see. So, but if your stories are very, very close, then you might have had the same experience. So just go ahead and shoot us an email at that email address, and I will send you the link to come on the show. It's viewer call-in night, Michelle.
Hey, that's what it became.
So thanks everybody for joining us. It won't let you cut.
Charlie was choking. He keeps eating sticks.
Oh.
Ugh. Metalhead said it won't let me cut.
That's weird.
Now, if we can't get it to work tonight, there's always we've got all summer coming up except for a couple escapes from Michigan.
Yeah. We got a couple little vacays we're gonna take off and get away from Michigan for a little bit.
Going out west to do some sky watching.
Yep. We'll be in Nevada,
California.
Checking things out.
So
Guy, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Dolly. Maybe she forgot. I mean, she could be experiencing weather though too. I don't know where she's from. So yeah, we're going to head out to Tahoe, Dorothy, for our wedding anniversary, since that's where we got married, and it's amazing to watch the sky.
Our anniversary trip is actually back to Laughlin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Our after anniversary trip to celebrate our anniversary.
Yeah, because we got married at Emerald Bay in Lake Tahoe on the California side. So we're celebrating our 6th wedding anniversary.
Yeah, Bullhead City and Laughlin are very, very cool.
Yeah, we're going to be there about mid to late July with my best friend and her husband. So getting her out of the house to go on a trip. All right. He said he sent it.
Okay. So I'm just waiting for it to show up here. So yeah. So, oh man, Michelle, the news. Oh my God, this week.
NASA.
What is going on with NASA? What is this?
4 hours.
What is going on with this, man?
What was that? Like 12 scientists and 1 retired astronaut?
Yeah. NASA wants to get in on this. I know everybody was talking about it. So, come on. Waiting for Metalhead's email. Address not valid. mi.ufo.podcast. Did I type it in wrong?
What about doing an invite through StreamYard?
Well, I just don't want him to put his email address out there.
Oh.
mi.ufo.podcast@gmail.com.
Well, how about this? How about we go to a commercial?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a break.
We'll go to a commercial. That way, hopefully, we can, figure out how to get Metalhead on.
Amuamua 42 is here. Welcome. Just in time for a quick break. So, Dolly has not shown up yet, so maybe she'll show up for the last little part of the show and we can talk to her. But, yeah, let's go ahead and we're going to run oh my God, Michelle. What's going on right now? Contact in the Desert.
There you go.
So that's over tomorrow. So, all right, peeps. Wait a minute. Wait. Okay, Metalhead just emailed me. All right. Now, before we bring them on, let's go ahead and take this quick break. Thanks, everybody. We'll be right back.
Traveling near New Boston, Michigan? Hungry? Well then, you need to check out New Boston Coney and Grill tucked away at 37005 Huron River Drive. With daily specials, homemade soups and desserts, and a staff that makes you feel like family, you will not be disappointed. Give them a try for dine-in or carry-out at 734-606-5313. You can find their page, including their menu, on Facebook. Bon appetit!
The 9th Annual Contact in the Desert Conference happens the weekend of June 2nd at the beautiful Renaissance Resort near Palm Springs, California. Join me, George Norrie, to discover what's next from speakers such as Graham Hancock, Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Stephen Bassett, and over 50 other top researchers. Come make contact with new friends and discover the latest fascinating information from the fields of UFO studies, artificial intelligence, psychic phenomenon, and more. Reserve your seat now at contactinthedesert.com.
3 minutes left, everybody. Just 3 minutes. Minutes left, everybody. Get ready. 2 minutes. All right, everybody, we're back. And we are back. So here we are. So instead of having just one guest tonight, Michelle,
we get three.
We get three, at least three. So let's go ahead and bring on Metalhead. So Metalhead, come on in.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, face with a name.
Yes. How's it going, my friend?
Going well. Going well.
All right. So I'm going to bring Dorothy in as well so she can kind of hang out here and listen in and chime in. So Dorothy has decided to join us. Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, everybody.
Good seeing you. All right. So let's go ahead and start with Metalhead here. So Metalhead, what is your story, man? I'm blown away when you started talking about the 70s and.
Well, let me kind of start. I was born in 62. I was born with like really bad eyes and a bunch of other things. I wasn't born perfect. Let's just put it that way. Had a lot of health problems. By the time I was 5, I guess you could call them shadow people. They were coming in I shared a room with my older brother, and he would say he saw them too at certain times of the night, like you wake up. And from my memory, they were all, I always thought they were kids because they were short, but they had like these big heads. I can only see silhouettes, never details, ever. And that went on for quite a while, easily until I was 9 or 10. And then I guess fast forward, when I was 15, it was a couple of days after my birthday in August. And I was with my older brother, and school was getting ready to start, right? A couple days later. And I was also with a neighbor. In my area, it was semi-rural, a lot of trees, but there was buildings and houses and whatnot. This isn't one of the suburbs of LA. It's called San Gabriel Valley. Anyways, there's a junior college that's up on a hill that had many levels of parking, right? Back in the 70s, there was no parking lights. There was no security. There was, you guys remember, if you remember back then. Anyways, we went up there with the plan of smoking some weed. Straight up. That was our whole plan. We just wanted to go up, smoke a joint, and then go home and start school the next day or whatever it was, right? My brother, who was 4 years older, he had the car, so he drove us up there. And as soon as we got out, something compelled probably all three of us to look up. And all I can say, sitting very low in the trees, because these were really tall trees within the parking structure and around the whole college. You couldn't even see the main building from the normal street. There were so many trees. But this thing managed to fit pretty much over the college and past it. It was a black triangle, is what I'm talking about. It had to be 100 yards on each side. Had to have been. It was incredibly large. And on each corner, there was very dim. And I mean, so dim you could barely see it. And on the inside, there was 3 lights, blue, red, and green, but in a triangle, right in the middle. And I remember, and those were very dim as well. And there was no sound. And all I can remember, in a blink of an eye, and I mean a blink of an eye, mind you, okay, let me go back just 1 second. I remember when we got out, I looked at my watch, because it was a birthday watch, right? My dad gave me or whatever. I remember looking at the time, it was a little bit after 8:30. In the blink of an eye, all three of us are in different parts of the parking lot. One of them's on that same level. My brother's on another level, and then I'm on the top level. And we're like, everybody's like, what, WTF. And I remember looking up, and as soon as I looked up, this thing, in another blink of an eye, I guess you could say transported, because you see maybe a very small streak, but then all of a sudden it was miles out there. And when I looked, there was 5 or 6 other lights that were doing, floating in various, doing stunts. Let's just put it that way. And what was funny, that one added to it. So it was like, looking back, I looked, man, that was its, partners out there, however many miles they were. And the other thing, there was police helicopters everywhere, because I could see the city, because I was sitting on top of the hill, right? And I mean, plethora of helicopters, but never a news story.
Are you sure they were police helicopters and not military?
They could have been military.
Okay.
I remember seeing one police helicopter specifically, but then, there had to be, because they were everywhere. And, all you can see are lights, and, they're helicopters, because of the way they're flying, and, and they're low. I ran down the hill, got my brother. We looked at each other. We didn't even say anything. We just wanted to make sure we were okay. Came down, got my neighbor, and I looked down, and it was 11:45. Now, in our mind, this is like all taking place within 10 seconds. You know what I'm saying?
You lost about 3.5 hours or so?
Somewhere around there. And,
wow.
And we got in the car. No, my brother didn't say anything. I was sitting in the back seat with my neighbor for some reason. I don't know why. Nobody sat in the front seat with my brother. And my neighbor, who was a football dude in high school, and he was huge. He goes, I will crack your skull if you tell anybody this story. And I mean it.
Yeah.
He goes, we don't say shit. And I looked at him and I kind of followed his lead because, you know, he was like 2 grades ahead of me and, you know,
sure.
Football dude, all that. Here I was, a little skinny guitar player, you know?
Yeah.
And,
you know, you said about what, 300 feet? That sounds about right. I mean, the one that we saw, I would estimate was about 100 yards. It was about the size of a football field in lengthwise.
Right. And, you know, I wish I could say it all ended there, but it didn't.
It never seems to.
It just, you know, this has been following me ever since, I guess, you know, I can remember, I suppose. You know, one form or another. I mean, I've had experiences with my wife. I live here in Southern California. I live in the desert now. Living here 30 years. It's the Antelope Valley. It's really close to Edwards Air Force Base and a lot of aerospace. Plant 42 is only like 3 miles from my house. And, you know, so I know there's a lot of testing that goes on out here. But there's other weird shit. Anyways, we used to go fishing to the Eastern Sierras. I don't know if you guys heard of Mammoth Mountain. It's a very popular ski place during the winter. Anyways, this is during the spring. And long story short, my wife and I hiked up to this really high lake where nobody was fishing. Right. And I was trying to catch some brown trout or something like that, whatever was on my mind. And we go there, and I'm telling you, within 3 minutes, maybe less, out of nowhere, I see this big rock, you know, way down the pond, right? It was like more of a big, huge pond, especially in Michigan. That's what you guys would call it. And it was a huge rock, came out of nowhere. And at first I thought, all right, maybe it just got loose and rolled down the hill. So I'm fishing, fly fishing. A couple of minutes later, there's what looks to be a very big tree branch thrown from that same area. But I'm not seeing anything. I'm not hearing anything other than these things are being tossed somehow. The final straw was a bigger rock, and it was closer to us. And still didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing. And this is back in like 92, 93. It's funny. I didn't think much of it other than maybe a bear was up there. But then I thought bears don't throw rocks and they don't throw wood. We got the heck out of there and never saw anything. However, we did see these things being thrown in, and it was all. Now I look back, maybe it was a Bigfoot, some cryptid, something. I don't know. I don't know who threw those things. So just things like this throughout my life, especially when I moved out here in 92. The desert has a lot of very weird things going on out here. You know, I've tried to document quite a bit on infrared film, the things that are like flying in the valley, but you can't see it with your eye. So I don't know what they are. I mean, They just look like dots floating around, but they're floating around, right? Others, gosh, when was this? Probably 8-9 years ago. I used to have a bad case of insomnia, and I'd go out into the backyard and smoke a cigarette, right? And you look at a clear night. I think it was either summer or spring. I'm not sure. It was just really clear. I hear this buzzing sound coming from the west, coming towards me to the east. They're coming. I'm sitting there looking. Mind you, this is before everybody had a cell phone too. Early 2000s. I'm going to say that is before I had anything worthy of filming, but I didn't have it with me anyways. There were 5 saucers in formation, just like a triangle, but there were saucers. And the moon was shining very bright that night. I don't know if it was a full moon, but it was bright. And I could see it shine, and it would look kind of chromish silver. And I got a real good look of it because they flew really low over our neighborhood. And I mean low. But there was a buzz that I heard and I felt. These were 5 of them, I guess, buzzing all at the same time. And they were going quick, and they were headed east, which is funny, towards Edwards Air Force Base, which is just east of me. All these things. And then
well, it's like Guy says here, just to interrupt you for a second. He says it's like me, just odd shit.
Right. It's just one fucking thing after another. I will tell you, after I turned 15, my addiction became really bad to drugs. Really bad, because I just think I couldn't at that time wrap my head around what the heck happened.
Exactly.
And, fortunately for me, I ultimately got clean. And by that time, I bought a house within a year after getting clean. The one I'm in now. Yeah.
Well, do you have any recollection of what happened in those 3.5 hours? Do you have any scars, anything medical?
Look, I'm not going to show it to nobody because it's pretty close to the private parts.
Not a problem.
but there's a triangle scar there. And it's been there ever since. And now that I'm getting ready to turn 61 in August. As you know, your skin the gravity starts dropping your skin a little bit. And now it's bumps in a triangle.
Does it feel like there's something under your skin at all?
I can't feel it topically.
Okay.
Let me tell you something, though. My wife and I never had biological kids. We tried, and it wasn't for lack of trying or making that decision. We wanted kids. Never happened. We ended up, she had 2 other nephews that were either going to go to a foster home or whatever. And we took them in when they were babies, and now they're all grown up. We raised them. And I always think part of that reason they messed with my reproductive. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna be ashamed of that. It could be. I don't know for sure. I have the only insurance I have is like HMO. It really stands for they don't give a shit about anything.
Yeah.
Other than if you want a script of something, or
Yeah, they'll be happy to get you addicted to something, right?
Oh yeah, they did that too for a while.
Painkillers and whatever.
Right. Yeah.
The pills are the answers for everything.
Right.
Man.
And there's more stories, but I'll stop.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. That was.
I don't want to hog up your whole time.
No, man, that's great. Send us some emails, man. We'll read some of your accounts for sure.
Okay.
If you have some of those pictures and things, we'll put them up. Yeah.
I'll have some videos I can send over. You know, some of them are long because they're interesting. Because it is with the infrared camera.
Yeah.
I've gone through quite a few different ones, but over the years, but I've caught, you know, at first you think, oh, it's just a satellite, right? Then another satellite crosses its path at a slower speed and then really slows down and then just keeps going. And then also, I mean, I have caught what I would call a traffic jam of things going at least 8 to 10 at the same time, just crossing paths. And I don't think satellites get that close. And I mean, unless somebody can tell me different, because I don't know.
Well,
I have things like that. Other things.
As Guy says here, thanks so much for sharing, man, dude. Thanks a lot for coming on and talking about your accounts, and we'll get some more from you, and we'll talk more for sure.
I'll send some stuff over to you, and you can, you know, if you don't want to show it, you don't have to show it. It doesn't make a difference to me. And if you do, whatever, that's cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Metalhead. We're gonna go ahead and send you to the back, and take care. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm so long-winded.
No, dude, it's absolutely fine. Have a good night, man, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you for allowing me to share. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good one, man.
Thank you.
Dorothy, what's going on?
Well, that was incredible, wasn't it? I mean, wow.
Yeah, let's just say it was a coincidence that he has a scar on his lower abdomen of a triangle.
Yeah, and I had an supposedly encapsulated wasp or hornet stinger in my arm that my doctor, you know, like when I was 35, 40, had to remove because it didn't move through and it got encapsulated. I mean, she could not get it cut to biopsy it to find out what it was. There was something so hard. It had crystallized or something or another. Tissue grew around it. She had to cut into my arm to get it out. So, and it was a bump, and it was a definite bump, and it was interfering with my left shoulder movement. Okay, and so it didn't.
It was supposedly a sting, like a stinger.
Well, the only thing I can think of is, okay, in childhood where I lived in Janesville. At the time I lived there, people weren't aware of things like ground nests and especially little children playing on the yard.
Yeah.
You know? And I accidentally sat on the top of one and they started jumping out and swarming us and we had to run away. And I remember getting, you know, stung in my arm and stung a whole bunch of places. But that's the only thing I can think of that had happened to me that would make something be stuck there and get encapsulated with tissue and so forth. It didn't bother me for years, but being a lifelong piano player, you know, over time you get certain muscles built up. And so it was interfering with my piano playing. It was giving me pain. It was weird. And it wasn't something I had developed, you know, because you can develop weird problems. So anyway, yeah, the idea that we're all chipped somehow from an early age, it's not so out of the realm. I don't think.
It really does not seem like it, does it?
No, not at all. Not at all. The reason I wanted to come on at a different time is that my story is kind of complex. I've had very unusual experiences, and my connections to other people in the world that are connected with this subject in some way, I suppose, is kind of weird. And more synchronistic stuff has been happening since my son passed away that I can even recount in a few minutes here. You know, I know your viewers can't, you know, sit still for another hour and a half. That other interview, the first one I ever gave, I saved Jeff's show one time. Hollywood was supposed to appear and she didn't appear. And I just jumped onto the stream 20 minutes before and somebody suggested in the chat that I come up and tell my story, and so I
Yeah,
did,
so
you know.
those of you listening and just joining us after our quick break, we were supposed to have Dolly Safran on and talk about her story and abduction throughout her whole life since the time she was 14. And unfortunately, she has not shown up. So we have turned this into a viewer / listener call-in show, and people were yelling and wanting Dorothy to come on and talk a little bit about what's going on with her. So, Dorothy, we
Hey
got to
there.
get this out there. So,
well, yeah. The thing about the complex PTSD is that many people around the world by this time are suffering from one degree or another of something of this kind. And I think a lot of it's multi-generational. I just saw a documentary all about how planned obsolescence came in with the light bulb. And it was at one time a work relief program during the Depression, make things cheaper with worse parts, or convince people. They figured out how to convince people that the thing they had was bad and out of date. One suggestion was to declare things legally dead after a certain period, and if you were using them, you're going to have to pay a tax on it. You know what I'm saying? It's been around for a long time.
Well,
And how are we getting to this whole system of we won't own anything and we'll be happy? It was amazing the history of how we've been programmed by propaganda from a long time ago. And I was programmed by sci-fi from an early age. I'm the young. I was the youngest for 9 years in my family, and all my siblings were much older than me. I came along really late, like 12 years into my family. So next sibling up was
so did I.
Yeah,
I was the 8th of 8.
Was a boy, and he was 4 years older than me. Then my 3 sisters came, and so they were 7, 8, and 11 years older than me, right? So guess who's the resentful first sister who had to babysit every single kid who came after her? Oh man, but
just real quick, Dorothy, something maybe you can look into later. I know that they have, I don't want to say they've proven it without a doubt, but when you're talking about PTSD, they've pretty much come forward and said that trauma is transferred via genetic code now. Like,
well, and also for all the named maladies that the pharmaceutical industry is so jumped upon, and sure, they're right, there's no real legitimate scientific tests for anything they claim. It's all clusters of symptoms, and they're doing symptom management the way they are, and the rest of sick care.
Yep.
And they don't even know how it works, and they don't test the long-term effects of things. They don't test it on enough people, and now people are getting, reactions to the pills that they took to take, the edge off of whatever else was going on, especially pain meds, that whole scheme that they were.
Yeah, and then they need to take pills to counteract the pills.
Pathologizing every human experience. What I went through is what I consider a shamanistic awakening. This is way shamans would be awakened. What the shaman saw in a mental hospital is the greatest article I ever saw. It's what happens is this kind of thing where you're getting voices and you're getting, presences, and you're getting this and you're getting that. It's supposed to be that you're going into a different state of your consciousness where you become a community healer. And I knew this in coded form from my own religious training, which is not formal, but it's extensive through the family line. I had all these weirdos showing up in penguin suits and weird costumes to every family party, strange hats, weird collars, the flying nun kind of thing. And they were ubiquitous in my family. And I just don't know that side. That was my mom's side of the family. We only count the men's side of the family in the family histories we're writing, or our surnames and stuff right now, But I had my genetic line traced back, and get this. My name is Hawkins, right? There was that infamous slaver and shipbuilder who started the whole slave trade for the Europeans to the Americans, right? So I hope I'm not related to that guy. I hope I don't find out I'm related to that guy, but there's plenty of genetics there. But I'm related to like 13 disparate places on the earth. Okay, get this. I am Peruvian, Chinese, Sri Lankan, Punjabi, Gujarat, Gujarati, Chinese Dai, Puerto Rican, I'm Iberian, Tuscany, Italy is part of my heritage. Of course, Britain, probably plenty of German in there, and Irish and Norwegian is all I ever knew. And that's just such a weird thing for a Hawkins. Well, maybe it wasn't weird for Hawkins living in Norway, because that was all, it was all mixed up back then, we're all mutts. That's what I'm trying to get after. And if we can't get after the idea that we're all related genetically as humans, how are we ever going to relate to something so other as alien? That's what I guess my point is, it's like, and so I think the aliens are showing up to children at young ages in code form, like I had with this whole thing. Okay, so I'll set the scene. I'm 8 years old. No, I'm 9 years old. I just had eye surgery on the day that JFK was assassinated. This is what part of why I'm calling this my coincidental life when I'm writing it up here. Yeah, okay. And when I was 9 years old, I had that surgery on November 22nd, 1963. I woke up in the recovery room and the nurses were crying and I thought I died. Don't ever let anybody tell you that ether was an okay thing, because it took me 5 days to wake up and I had to walk around with double patches on both eyes, right? It was like really bad. Okay, so that was November, right, of 63. And in January of 64, we moved from Janesville to Brookfield, a suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because my dad got a better job. And it was a new school. And we had a sister who was developmentally delayed, but not exactly. It was like the neural wiring wasn't complete because she was born too early after the other one. And mom's body was depleted. So it wasn't really all that healthy, and they were also children of the Depression. And at that time, their diets weren't as rich as they were later when they got successful. So a lot of my older siblings have things that my later, siblings and I don't have, just because they were born in a time when people didn't know as much about nutrition and stuff. But this thing, okay, so we moved. I had the eye surgery, which was really intense, on the day that JFK died, and that was intense. And it was a new school, and the sibling was always acting out wrong and not really understanding what was wrong. It's like, whoa, okay. So I had this dream under these circumstances. We had just moved to this new place outside of Milwaukee, and I was crying in my bed. It was just like, everybody isn't real here. It's like, nobody's real here. We're all playing actors or something. It was like, I couldn't understand the squabbles of my older siblings, my older sisters, and my brother's always brushing me off because I'm a girl, until my mother gave him hell and then he had to leave.
Sure.
So I had this dream and the aliens came and took me on a ride, and I don't know how I got there, but I remember the dream out of all the incredible numbers of dreams I've had over this, almost 7 decades, or, I just turned 68. So, it's the one dream I can remember in vivid detail. And I was there. I was going around Saturn with them. That's where I wanted to go because it was pretty and had rings that I had seen a picture of. And there we were, boom. And in later years, I did a lot of lucid dreaming. It's like I had my dream theater. I'd go back to my hometown because I used to walk all over Janesville when it was small and safe. And I walked down to the new parking lot structure. That's what my girlfriends and I would do when we were young and living there. And we learned how the parking lot structure worked, because that was the coolest thing in town. It was the newest thing. And so I'd slip into the parking lot, I'd like go run this whole sequence in my mind before I get to the dream I wanted. And by that time I was on to the Man from U.N.C.L.E. But, uh, I would have this whole lucid dreaming thing. But then later there were these other circumstances. And then the whole thing with the PTSD developing into complex PTSD, it might have happened without my son becoming ill at age 13 with juvenile diabetes. But there was a significant incident about a month after he was diagnosed. He'd had his morning breakfast and he'd had his insulin, and he went out onto the ice on the lake we were living on to go out to the fishing shack with Mike, who was our next door neighbor and our really good friend. And as he was coming back, he was starting to feel shaky. And when he got to the lawn, he fell over by our neighbor's house and started convulsing in the snow. He had forgotten to take a snack out to the ice shack, and none of us figured he burned too many calories because it was cold that day, you see. And the paramedics had to come. And I had that kit where you mix up the powder and the liquid, and I messed it up. And it set me up for starting panic attacks a month later.
Sure.
And over the years, my son had very many emergencies. A juvenile diabetic can die in 20 minutes from a sugar low like he had. And so it messed me up. I became so hypervigilant, I couldn't sleep right. And I had a full-time job teaching over 100 students a day, full-time in a public school, like a really good public school.
Yeah.
Teaching music to all the kids in the school. And concerts and all this other stuff that I'm doing.
Sure.
This is like a busy single mom's life here. And so over time, I lost so much sleep that I actually cracked up after I got away from an abusive guy. It's like when you're falling into these things like traumatic stress, you just think you're being yourself. But after a point, you just go, oh my gosh, I'm going to work the thing I used to love to do. And all of a sudden my palms are sweaty and I'm crying, it's like, that's where the complex part came. But when I escaped the abusive boyfriend and had to move my son down carload by carload under cover of night, because he had threatened to kill him because I was breaking up with this guy. My mind went into a weird place, a really weird place in the recovery period, Moved back down to Milwaukee with my future in-laws, and all these weird things happened, and it's too much to tell in a very short amount of time. Let me tell about the one that I reported in 2001 and my involvement in the subject overall and why I'm so interested. 97, I was on a little weekend trip with my sister rehabbing a future alternative healing center that two of my sister's friends from Harvard Divinity School were going to open in this little place that used to be like a stagecoach inn, and they were trying to be a town, but the railroad didn't go there. So it ended up not being a town, but there's a little hotel, right? And so there's like 40 people having this big party Friday night. They all sleep down in the bar with their sleeping bags. Because my sister and I got there early, we got the upstairs hotel rooms. Yay. But I fall asleep around 10 and I'm having trouble sleeping because of my son's problems, right? And my reactions to them. And so, there's 40 people downstairs. I'm kind of a loud person if you haven't noticed yet. And music teachers have to be at the group sing along right before Christmas break. Oh man. Anyway, so I said, okay, I woke up at like 2:30 in the morning, and I said, okay, all these people are downstairs. I can't sit still like this. I got to do something. So I decided to take a drive, and it's all rural out there. A lot of Wisconsin's this way. I'm sure a lot of Michigan's this way too. Rural, forested, all kinds of stuff. This wasn't forested at all. It's all farmlands out here in eastern and southeastern and up to, I think it's even up to the point, of the state that you see. So I'm driving along and just kind of meandering over to this place called Elkhart Lake. And because I had looked up in the phone book, this is way back in 97, no cell phones, no nothing, no GPS, no nothing. Elkhart Lake is a little town that somebody told me was close. And I looked it up. There was a Dunkin' Donuts shop. I said, okay, I'll take a drive, go see the scenery, go see the sights, because it was a full moon and it was snow on the ground. It was nice, fresh snow on the ground. Well, even if it wasn't fresh out in the country, it still looks fresh all the time, right? So you can really see because the snow really reflects the light. And so it's really kind of half light, like you'd get in a partial eclipse or so, or, not a total eclipse, but a partial eclipse almost. And so I'm driving along, look at the farmer's fields, it's wide open, the houses are set way back. They figured out how to put their fields up front so they didn't have to run their equipment so far to get, across to do their work. So all of a sudden I look over and there's these 3 chevron things that are flying next to me. Okay. They're off in a distance and they're up a little bit, but there's 3 of them. And they look like Star Trek badges. I can't quite make it on a screen the way Star Trek badges look. It wasn't the classic triangle, but it was like more like this.
Right.
And they had a half dome that was red on the bottom, little underneath point lights, and a half dome on top, probably clear. The big one underneath was red. And they were going at my speed. And the issue with this is I am a World War II Air Force pilot's daughter who, with his friends after the war, leased or bought a plane. No, I think they leased the plane together and bought time on it and maintained it together. And so he taught me how to fly so that I could be the co-pilot while we were going to take a cross-country trip to visit our relatives out at their motel in the desert. They lived out in California and they had a little motel. These relatives owned a little motel, and my uncle, he worked for one of the studios in Hollywood. So it was going to be like they're introducing me to Hollywood royalty that weekend, because all the stars used to go there to get away from all the cameras and the narratives that they were forced to get into, back in those days. So, but the day of the trip, the uncle had a heart attack. Well, anyway, I know about the principles of flying because my dad took 6 months to teach me. All right. I know how fast they have to fly. I know how to land it. I know kind of what the speeds are, I mean, the crew, my dad and his friends owned a Cessna. And I looked up the cruising speed of a Cessna, where you can keep going, just keep going in a straight line like that. It's like something like 110 to 130, right?
Yeah, those are the planes I used to fly.
And there's no way at 45, 50 miles an hour on these country roads that these things were not landing. Are you with me here? But they weren't. I took a turn away and, and pretty soon I'm looking around and there they are again. All right. Okay. So my dad, when I was a little kid living in Janesville, he was in the Civil Air Patrol after the war. And I learned how to signal him from the ground with my family when he'd fly over our house.
Yeah.
And when he'd fly over, we would, if we were driving, we would, do wipers on and off, or, and lights on and off, wave your arms out the window, that kind of thing. If we were on the ground, we just wave. But so I did all these things from my car to let them know I knew they were there, because they were playing with me. It was like I was taking turns and they were still cruising next to me. Right. And I'm like, okay, you're weird. And that's what made me think it was our own tech, our own advanced tech being tested somewhere, in a rural area in the middle of the night, because out in the rural area, it was the only thing on the road going anywhere at regular speed. So I really have a question for David Wilcock about that. So I reported this whole thing. Oh, and the thing I forgot to mention on Jeff at Strange Recon show was as they were cruising next to me, they were changing, or they were bouncing their radio signal off my radio somehow, and it was changing tunes and stations, but it was one of those old dial ones, you know?
Yep.
So, but the dial wasn't moving. It was just the station must have been changing because it was changing mid song, you know, to some other song, which is really, really weird. Never happened before, never happened since. Nothing else happened in my car. But once I did all this signaling to them, they took their chevrons and went boop, 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 the way my dad would do with his airplane before, to acknowledge that he got the message, and then he'd take off, you know. And so that's what they did. They had enough of playing, and so to me it was like, okay, they're testing something. It makes sense, you know. Why would you do it out in the middle of daytime if it's under testing?
Yeah,
you know, or they're already patrolling with them over Lake Michigan, which wasn't that far away. All right. So if these things are, you know, like, I don't know what kind of propulsion that would be, but to me, they look more or less like the experimental aircraft I'd seen at the EAA fly-in conventions at Oshkosh, Wisconsin with my father. Not like that shape, but the reason I didn't have any kind of a quiggy reaction was because I knew how to fly. And so I was really excited, and I thought that jets and cars were real, and they were here, and we already had them. And I'd already learned the fact that anything we have is something the military has used and made it undangerous, so it was suitable for civilian use. So it wasn't far-fetched to me that the jets and cars were real, you know. Not at all.
Right.
And I didn't have the quiggy reaction because I was seeing something so novel that it was freaking me out.
And you think you saw 5 of them?
3.
Oh, 3 of them. But they had
Yeah.
5 lights on them. Is that correct?
As far as I recall, one in the front under point light, one on the back point, one on the back point, and they were different color. And then there was a lit half dome, red, underneath. And then there was another half dome on top, probably clear. I didn't see them that well because they were up above the road, you know.
Right.
And so the reason
by the way, Intergalactic, I don't know if you see this, Dorothy. He says, I'd let Dorothy fly my spaceship.
Anyway, so in the dream, the aliens let me take the ship, and in the Chevron sighting, they played with me in the rural fields. But the most stunning synchronicity of all was when I went on Jeff's show. I started unraveling, you know, it's like I got all these weird people in my life and strange, you know, connections and stuff. And the reason I started researching anything at all is because I don't know anything about my dad's military history at all, or anything. But I did help him write a family history, and he was indicating in this family history that in the little town where he lived in Twin Valley, Minnesota, I think it's been renamed, and I can't remember the new name. Their family knew General Stenseth from World War I. And Dad told a story that Grandpa Hawkins, when he was a little boy, his dad would take one of his rental cars out to meet the general and drive him into town, and then just grant him the use of the car. And then, you know, for free, because he's the hero. And then, you know, so this was a repeated action on my grandfather's part for the general. And Jeff uncovered something that I wasn't even connecting, and it's kind of weird because this General Stenseth founded Nellis Air Force Base. Okay. So now it's even a worse family history mystery. Why are the Hawkins Norwegian? And why are we connected to Nellis Air Force Base? And why did I have that dream? And why did I see the chevrons and they played with me? And why, right around that same time, I saw the Disclosure Project? And why did I see an urgent request for transcriptionists? You know, it's like, oh my goodness, I got weird connections that are it's like I said to Jeff, it's 100% speculation. I do like creative writing. I do believe a few things came through. I'll send a couple pieces that I've written before that I think are actually, you know, like an amalgamation of what I think I've digested, maybe from what I've taken in. But the weirdest one was the weird wind that kept up all night long. And I asked Rich about it, and he was pretty sure it was a meteorological thing, but I still say it's too weird. I'll send that one to you.
Awesome.
Yeah. So there have been other things, prescient dreams, warning dreams, moments of psychic connection with people, telepathic stuff that I did in this period of recovery after this, leaving this jerk, really. And if you want the next coincidence about it, other than eye surgery on JFK's assassination day, the day that Jeff called me up 20 minutes before I interviewed for that is the anniversary of my late mother and my late husband's birthday. October 17th. I married a man who had my mom's same birthday. What a weird thing to do.
Oh my God. It's just all a coincidence.
You want another coincidence?
Sure. Hey, while we're at this,
believe it or not, Stephen Greer is my little brother because I'm 30 days older than him. If the biographical information I read about him is correct.
So you might have some type of tie to Stephen Greer.
I don't think there are coincidences either. See, the pieces are coming together for me finally after all this time. And this is the way it is for a lot of people with complex PTSD. It's difficult to remember because of the traumas that were ongoing, the exact sequences of dates, your own age when things happen. And for me, it was more like I had to do it by referential stuff that I remember was going on at the time. Like, well, who's going to forget waking up in the recovery room with double eye patches from ether, hearing people cry and thinking you're dead? You know, it's like, whoa.
Well, okay, Michelle.
Okay,
wait a minute.
Are we talking about synchronicities?
Yes. Are you going to tell ours? Listen to this one if you're ready for this.
Okay.
So grew up in Wayne County, lived off of Wayne Road, went to Wayne Memorial, dated a Wayne when I was 19 in college.
This guy right here.
This guy.
I love this.
23 years later, still living in Wayne County, not too far from Wayne Road. I teach in the city of Wayne. I grew up in the city of Wayne. Our initials, WM, are my high school, Wayne Memorial.
And
I think Wayne was your destiny.
And now this one's kind of a smack in the face synchronicity, but I'm just gonna put it out there. Her ex-husband for a while lived at the intersection of Wayne and Michelle with his mother.
There's a street called Michelle Drive in Wayne Road.
Picture of that crossroad.
I have yet to stop in Romulus yet to get a picture of it.
We will.
You've got the two Michelle Drive and Wayne Road. I'm like, oh my God, this is like crazy.
Amazing.
Guy says it all right here. He says, okay, that's effing crazy. Yeah.
Well, right. And I don't know if you guys see, because of what was going on in my family as I grew up, I really dug into psychology and stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dombrowski's theory of positive integration.
Can't say that I have.
Okay. it's very interesting. I'll find the little short educational film about that theory, and I think that might be what I've finally going through. Like I'm finally synthesizing my experience and coming back together, because in the nature of my daily chaotic, traumatic experiences in my family, I had to dissociate most of the time from my own feelings, and I had to deny them. I had to deny my own childhood in order to survive, right? So, and there's more to that story too. Beyond my family, it was institutional abuse of a major nature when I was 6. So I just don't want to keep going into this, because that's just like too depressing, man. It's Saturday night. Let's party.
That's right. Well, on that note, Dorothy, it was great having you come on and share these experiences. And while you were talk about synchronicity.
You sound like his mom.
Not only that, she does sound like my mom. But
I remember talking to his mom a lot when I was 19.
But besides that, while you were talking, I get an email.
Oh my.
From Dolly.
Oh, fantastic.
So she says that she's sorry that she could not be on the show. She had a small emergency. And so I don't want to go into too many details, but she basically had a hole poked in her toe by a rooster.
OMG.
So she had to go get a tetanus shot, and they just got home from the hospital.
I could say so many things right now.
I mean,
you know,
so she wants to reschedule. So we'll bring her on next Saturday.
Well, thanks for making me the substitute.
Yeah. Yes. Hey.
Along with the other, it's great.
It was a blast, but I just find it really funny.
I know some of the guys in chat are
the synchronicities in your life is weird.
Yes, it is.
All right, you guys, I'm going to let you go, and I'll stop yakking. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Dorothy.
Here, Dorothy.
Oh man, that was great. That was great, man.
I've been a middle school teacher way too long. A rooster in a toe in a hole.
Yeah, they have a chicken coop. So
she got attacked by a